Hi, I'm Helen Bauer, and this is the Heart of Hospice podcast. The Heart of Hospice podcast is your source for compassionate and informative discussions about hospice and end-of-life care. I'm a certified hospice and palliative care nurse with over 15 years of experience. Whether you're a caregiver, someone with a serious illness, or you simply need to know more about hospice care, this podcast is for you. Join me as we explore all the aspects of hospice, from the details of caregiving to the emotional and spiritual dimensions of end-of-life journeys. For more resources and to connect with me, visit theheartofhospice.com and find us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Keep listening for today's episode.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
This special episode of the Heart of Hospice podcast, in collaboration with Stanford Health Care, is being sponsored by Kensington Senior Living. Kensington has senior communities in California, Virginia, New York, and Maryland, bringing the highest quality senior care to America's most sought-after locations. Kensington focuses on relationship-based care, built on the foundation of their promise to love and care for your family as they do their own. Visit KensingtonSeniorLiving.com for more information. This episode of The Heart of Hospice is being sponsored by Care Boss, the latest book by Jennifer O'Brien. Care Boss is the book that reminds family caregivers that they are the CEO of their loved one's care. Jennifer has served in healthcare leadership for over 35 years and was also the personal caregiver for her parents and her husband. Care Boss is written to empower caregivers, but it's more than just a book. It's a workbook and organizational tool as well. Check it out at jenniferaobrien.com.
There's a lot to unpack in this interview with today's guest. Sheralin Samuels is a caregiver for her mom who was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's disease while in her 50s. As part of the Stanford series, we would be remiss if we didn't share a caregiving story. Caregiving is a major part of end-of-life care. Caregivers who are supporting someone with an end-stage neurodegenerative disease are dealing with unique challenges. Caregivers are a vital part of the interdisciplinary team, and they always deserve a seat at the table and in this series. Sheralin Samuels is a sandwich caregiver, acting as the CEO, the Chief Everything Officer for her mom, Carlys. Sheralin works as a medical assistant at her job while raising 2 kids and taking care of all her mom's needs. Sheralin's mom was in her 50s when she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and Sheralin was in her mid-30s, raising her children, working her job. They've experienced all the ups and downs of caregiving, including a year on hospice care and a move into a memory care facility. Sheralin is so passionate about advocating for people dealing with early onset Alzheimer's disease, so much so that she's creating some YouTube videos to support other caregivers who are having the same experience. You can check the show notes of this episode for the link to her YouTube channel. You're going to want to listen all the way to the end of this episode. Sheralin is sharing some really personal stuff about her experience. She's talking about some of the symptoms that led to her mother being diagnosed with Alzheimer's, some symptoms that seemed pretty obvious but really weren't. Her mother's age created a problem for diagnosing the Alzheimer's. You know, the medical team saying it was too early to be an Alzheimer's disease, and led to her being prescribed medicines that were not helpful. Sheralin shares some of the struggles she's facing now as a caregiver for someone with Alzheimer's, emotionally and physically taxing. Sheralin also shares what she loves about being a caregiver and how it's changed her life in a positive way. She also shared with me that she's attending a support group through the Alzheimer's Association to help her manage her caregiving experience and all the emotions that come with it. She equates her experience as a caregiver with the game Jumanji. And you got to hear the description she gives. It's dead on, a little funny, but it's pretty dark, and she realizes it. She also has some great advice for people who are starting out as caregivers for people with Alzheimer's disease. So I hope you listen to this whole one. I hope you have time to listen to this whole episode. Sheralin's story is really valuable. There's a lot to learn. Sheralin, welcome to the Heart of Hospice podcast. I'm so grateful you're here with me today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and honor. Excited about the conversation.
It's going to be a good conversation and very valuable to my listeners. But we're going to start with an icebreaker question, just so I can get to know you a little bit. If you could only have one color of clothes in your closet, what color would it be?
Just one. I would go with yellow.
Oh, yeah. That's such a happy color. I like that.
Yes. Bright, happy, for me, very spiritual color. But yeah, I think of yellow, makes me smile. I love the sun. I love everything bright. It cheers me up. So yellow, definitely.
Very good. I was watching your face when you were thinking about this, and I thought, she's going to say it's not good to limit to only one color. You want to have all these different colors.
I was like, dude, is it just one? I thought of two, but I picked yellow.
What was your backup? What was the other one?
Purple.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. I like it. Well, we are going to be talking about some very serious topics today. That's why I started with a light question, but we're going to be talking about some hard stuff today. And it's important to have these conversations about caregiving. And you have a pretty unique story. Unfortunately, there are 55 million unpaid family caregivers all across the United States who are doing the same job that you're doing in one form or another. But your story is pretty unique. So I want you to introduce me to your mom and tell me how you got started caregiving.
So my mom's name is Carlys, Carlys.
Carlys.
She is a very strong single mother of three, hardworking, has always been a caregiver herself, worked with the elderly, enjoyed that. And just randomly one day, about 2012, when we go back and we once we get these diagnoses, we think, when did this start? When can I think back of where I call it the weird space? So things kind of got weird about 2012. She was at work and she fainted. She didn't know what happened, ended up in the hospital, couldn't figure it out. Thought it was a stroke, maybe, maybe not. But from 2012 on, things kind of just got weird. She got depressed, what we all thought was just a major bout of depression. She started forgetting things, saying things like, "Oh, well, I'll come over to your house, but I don't know which bus to catch. Can you tell me which bus to catch?" And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, saying the most meanest things. Like, are you crazy? Are you losing your mind? Like, never mind, forget it. Just a lot of anger and things like that. Time passes, 2018-ish, 17, 18, she starts to get lost, not able to find her way to and from regular places. But from the outside looking in, just being a busy person, mom, working, married, trying to figure life out. I couldn't understand, like, Why are you giving up on yourself? What's going on? There's not that much sadness in the world. I would say things like that to her. There can't be that much sadness in the world. Like, aren't you doing therapy? Like, what's wrong with you? Just really mean things. Um, so we did mental health rehab, um, all types of things to try to figure out how to help her. Uh, and then after the second round of the mental health rehab, uh, one of the workers called and she said, "Hey, I wanted to talk to you about your mother. I don't think what we're seeing here is mental health, which she was being treated for was schizophrenia. Um, she may have dementia." And I said, what are you talking about? Yeah, she was just standing in the day room and she just wet her pants. She was just standing there. She had no sensation. Like they saw that she had no idea this was happening. And then when they brought it to her attention, she argued, "I didn't do that. That can't be possible. What are you talking about?" And so we're thinking maybe, I'm in healthcare. Maybe it's a UTI. UTIs can make your brain go loopy. So like maybe it's a UTI and we missed it. And she's just been so neglectful of herself that has to be what it was. So hospital, ER, no UTI, sent us to specialists. And we started that journey with neurology, neuropsych, and everyone's saying at the time, no, she's in her early 40s or her late 40s. That's not possible. My books say this, the books say that. Not possible. She's too young. Look at her. Let's do this MOCA screening. She's scoring well in this MOCA screening. Let's just watch it for a while. Let's increase her mental health medications and we'll recheck over a period of time. So, um, time goes by, things are continuously weird. She's aggressive. She started collecting things. That's for me one of the telltale signs. I don't know if anyone else has experienced that with dementia or Alzheimer's, but she started to collect things. So she would carry a bag around with her when she would go from my house to another place that she was staying, and she would pick up any and everything and just put it in her bag. And I noticed things started coming up missing, and I'm asking her, "Can I check your bag? What do you think I'm stealing?" Now we're arguing. And I said, "Well, can I just take a look?" I open the bag and I look, and all of our stuff is there. And she's completely like, "Oh, who did that?" Like somebody setting her up. And again, I have no idea what dementia is. You hear about people being senile, dementia, forgetful, but you don't put too much thought into what that actually means. Uh, and so over the course of, I want to say, 2 years, we had a rapid decline. She got lost, um, and was found in the middle of the street, laying down crying because she just didn't know what to do. She was just scared, didn't know where she was, had lost her cell phone. I hadn't spoken to her for about a week because I was calling her and she wasn't answering. Um, so here we are now. We're back with neurology, and they're saying, "Wow, her scores have dropped significantly. This can't be right." Testing, had another person come in, revisit, got worse. Forget what the scores were, but they were really low, like 10, 11 on the MOCA test. So then we end up with our journey across the water at Stanford and neurology there, and going through the process of elimination of what else could it not be, what could it be. And then finally, I want to call it hardcore diagnostics, where we're at the spinal tap, we're at the CT scan, MRI situation, even EEGs to check for like seizure activities. And it was determined that she did for sure at that point have full blown Alzheimer's, confirmed by the spinal tap. Um, that was mind blowing and a lot to process. And so naturally, we go to Google, we do our searches, try to put a timeline together, and just went down a rabbit hole of information and realized that with myself and the care team that we had at the time, that her psych meds and the high dosage that she was on, or cocktail of things, had we not gone that route, she would have still had the Alzheimer's, but it would not have ever progressed as fast as it did. So those medications were eating away at the good parts of her brain and progressing that disease faster. Of course, you can't stop cold turkey. So had to eliminate what we could, process of elimination, and just titrate down until certain meds were no longer. At this point now, I'm like, how much time do I have?
Yeah.
That's the next question. How much time do I have? How many years does this last? When did this truly start? Um, so that's how it started. That's how the whole thing started, and it continues to evolve.
Wow. Wow. Sheralin, I have to ask, when you guys got the diagnosis, the like you're saying, the core diagnosis where they finally defined it, two questions. Was your mom aware and understanding of the diagnosis at that point?
Funny thing I discovered, and I think back to, and my sisters and a lot of my family members have had this discussion with my mom. Um, we believe that she knew, um, but chose to keep it quiet because she knew what dementia was.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe she thought that she had more time to sit with that and digest it. Um, but she knew that she had this going on, and or was leaning that way, because she would always say things like, if something ever happens to me, make sure that you donate my brain to a teaching institution or something, or people can study my brain. And then cremate me and do whatever you want, take the insurance money, live a good life. But for her to say specifically her brain,
Mm-hmm.
she knew something was going on. And then we found pamphlets about memory loss. And I was able to get into her medical record at this point, being her power of attorney. And I looked back at things that she was talking to her therapist about. And she knew. I think she was trying to hold and save face for a very long time. So during the time when we were taking her to the appointments for the diagnostics, she was still more with it and understanding of what was going on. But I don't think once we got the diagnosis, she was at a point where she processed it in an emotional way. A couple years prior, we did the Alzheimer's walk in San Francisco, and she participated. She wanted to do it. Because we kind of assumed that's where it was going, but weren't sure. But I think that she knew, and she couldn't outwardly express what that was like for her.
Were you relieved to have a defined diagnosis? I mean, obviously, you work in healthcare, right? You knew what it meant, or at least partially from a clinical standpoint, understood the impact of an Alzheimer's diagnosis. But were you relieved just to have some sort of answer that you could act on?
I was relieved, yes, to have an answer that I could act on and say, I told you so. But like, a better terms, I was pissed. I was pissed at the system. I was pissed at the process. I was upset about how we were treated and how we were just looked past. Um, I noticed a difference that when I would go dressed normally, relaxed, no one would listen to me. They just thought I was just some daughter thinking that she knew what she was talking about because Google told her. But on the days where I had to take time off work to take her to appointments, I was dressed professionally. I had a badge on. I couldn't see. I flipped it over, what my title was.
Right.
And immediately I noticed that that was the way to get answers and for people to hear me. They assumed that I was a social worker. They assumed that I was some sort of somebody, before they realized at the end that I was her daughter, and the look of shock, like, oh, I treated you like we were on the same level.
Yeah.
Oops. So I was pissed that we had to go through that, but I was relieved that we had an answer, and I was like, okay, now we have it on paper. Now things are solid. Maybe resources will open up for us, even though she's not the typical Alzheimer's type of patient.
So how old was she when you got the diagnosis? Because she started this in her late 40s.
Yeah, 47-ish is when I noticed the weirdness.
Mm-hmm.
And then 57 is when the diagnosis came.
10 years.
And she'll be 61 in a couple weeks.
Wow.
So that amount of time we lost where, I'm sure we could have done clinical trials or things like that, but she didn't want to be a burden, so she was just trying to chug along and stay strong and power through as long as she could. And I just think she had more time. She thought she had more time than she did to explain it to us.
Yeah. Well, plus you said the mental health meds that she was receiving were actually detrimental to her condition. Wow. Okay, so you were in your 30s when the diagnosis came in, and you are now your mother's power of attorney. You're what we call the family CEO. You're the chief everything officer for your mom. What's your mom's condition now, and what kind of support are you providing for her?
Her condition now, I like to remind people that Alzheimer's is one big gray area. It's ups and downs, peaks and valleys, spikes like an EKG. She is stable. She had a long journey so far. We spent a year on hospice. She graduated out of hospice, but she's stable. She is in a memory care, very nice memory care facility. And so that allows me to reset my life, because as we're going through all these years, I'm working, I'm taking care of kids full time. I'm her everything, and life just got chaotic. I felt like I was in a fog and tornado, at the same time, where I was just running on fumes for years, running on fumes, having a schedule. But I think I would say after all that, she's stable. She's happy. She's comfortable. She is thriving. That's what I like to say at this point. She's thriving. We're on a plateau right now. So she's doing well.
I wish my listeners could see the smile on your face that came when you said that. There was so much joy in knowing that she's having some quality of life. So nice.
Yes.
I hope you're enjoying this episode. We're going to pause for just a minute. My guest has more to share.
The Heart of Hospice podcast is proud to partner with Stanford Health Care to bring you this special 4-part series sponsored by Kensington Senior Living. Kensington focuses on relationship-based care built on the foundation of their promise to love and care for your family as they do their own. With communities in Northern and Southern California, Virginia, New York, and Maryland, they're working to provide the most loving and expert care in a comfortable setting, bringing the highest quality senior care to America's most sought-after locations. Caregiver Susan Evans shares how a move to a Kensington facility affected her family.
I was first introduced to Kensington in 2015. Our family made the difficult decision to move my father to Kensington in Northern California. Moving my father to Kensington was the best decision and hardest I have ever made. My father was happier, more content, and definitely less agitated. Kensington Senior Living gave my parents their relationship back and gave me the quality time back with both my mother and father.
Kensington weaves heartfelt professional care into the everyday lives of residents. They offer a wide range of services and amenities so residents can live securely, unburdened, and well attended in a beautiful community they're pleased to call home. For more information, visit kensingtonseniorliving.com. This episode of The Heart of Hospice is being sponsored by Care Boss, the latest book by Jennifer O'Brien. Jennifer O'Brien has served in healthcare leadership for over 35 years and was also the personal caregiver for her parents and her husband, Dr. Bob Limberg. She is the author of The Hospice Doctor's Widow, an art journal of caregiving and grief. Care Boss is her latest book, and it's more than just a book. It's a workbook and organizer that enables family caregivers to lead their loved ones' care sensitively and effectively. Jennifer writes with compassion and hard-earned wisdom, and readers will appreciate the empowerment and camaraderie they find in the pages of Care Boss. Care Boss reminds family caregivers that they are the CEO of their loved one's care. You can find Care Boss at your local indie bookstore or on Amazon and on Jennifer's personal website at jenniferaobrien.com.
So, you are a sandwich caregiver. You've got, what, 3 kids?
Two.
2 kids.
Well, 3 if you count the cat.
Oh, I have a dog, so yes, I would definitely count the cat. Yeah, because you're the food provider, you're the person who watches for their health, absolutely. And then on the other side of the thing, the caregiving journey is your mom. So you definitely are doing sandwich caregiving. What challenges you most as a caregiver? What do you struggle with?
I struggle with guilt of thinking back, just guilt of being a young teen, a young adult, young parent, um, all the I know it all. I'm gonna say like snappy smart things. I struggle with the things I can't go back and say now that I'm older. Mom, you know what? You were right. I'm sorry. I can say those things to her, and I do say those things to her, but in a way where she can give me something back, like, oh, it's okay. I can see it. She communicates with her eyes, very expressive. But I struggle with the time that we took for granted. And I also struggle with the fact that I'm in a constant state of this is just not fair, you know? Um, my son, who's 17, he grew up with his grandma, and then all of a sudden, she's ripped from us in a meaningful way where she's here physically, but she's not the same person.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge that she won't be there to cheer on graduation. She is very limited in what we can take her to do because of overstimulation.
Mm-hmm.
And I just struggle with the fact that it just doesn't feel or seem fair for her of all people. Not that anybody deserves it, but like for her to have to go through that.
Yeah.
A lot of grief. It's the long goodbye is what they call it. So I'm struggling with the long goodbye every day.
Yeah. It's anticipatory grief.
Constant.
Yeah, to say that prolonged goodbye day after day to little pieces. Yeah, little possibilities.
Or to sit and when the phone does ring from the health facility, it's usually just a prescription thing or, hey, can you help us get this thing from the doctor's office?
Mm-hmm.
But the way your heart drops when these people call you and they don't get straight to the point, it's a struggle every day. It's a struggle, because I'm waiting for that call, like I'm like, any day, anything could happen because it's a gray area,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a troublesome situation. And one day there's going to be a phone call, or there have been phone calls where the news is bad and the decisions are hard. Yeah. What do you love about being your mom's caregiver?
I actually love that although we've had these challenges, it helped me reset and really slow down and appreciate life, appreciate time, appreciate sitting outside in complete stillness and listening to the birds. I enjoy that. It's made me more aware of how important family is, how important it is to create memories.
Do you feel like it's just generated a feeling of gratitude for your health? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And just reminders to my friends and my family and, hey, tell your kids you're proud of them or Tell your parent that you love them, or take them a flower, even if it's just one. Just the little things, sit and talk to your parent about how they grew up. Pick their brain,
Yeah.
just hang out, and I I try to coach people into appreciating their time because our parents, they frustrate us.
Well, sure, sure. So
Yeah.
I was listening to what you were saying about you. There were times you felt like you spoke unkindly to your mom. I deal with the same thing. My mom has dementia, and I get impatient, and sometimes I'm like, "That's just crazy. What are you thinking?" And because the logical thought and the problem solving aren't there all the time, sometimes it seems like if they just worked a little bit harder to focus on things, maybe you experienced this early on with your mom as well, that they could just manage it. Mom, did you think of this and this? We've done this before to solve this problem. You have a cough and we bought you cough syrup. So did you think to take some cough syrup?
Mhm.
Well, no, I didn't. And I have a tendency to get frustrated with my mom. Do you have similar experiences like that?
Yes. So while she was still like, had a little bit more cognitive functioning in her thoughts, I would set up her meds, her schedule, her day, make sure she had everything in place, and say, all you have to do is just do this. All you have to do is, I don't understand. I don't understand
Right.
why
Super
you,
simple.
yeah, I don't understand why you can't just follow the schedule. Things would be so much easier. It's right here in your face. Just trying to convince her that what my reality is and our reality is, it's really simple for her to just follow. And I learned doing that to stop, and that once there is dementia or Alzheimer's present, you have to adjust your life and live in their world and adjust to what their normal is, and just live in their world, and you adjust, because anything outside of that, you're going to drive yourself insane.
Right.
As long as she's not harming herself, as long as she's healthy, don't worry about how weird or off or even messy something might be.
So I'm going to tell a funny story. My brother does the ordering for my mom's groceries, and she will give him a list and he has it delivered to her place. So I went to her apartment a few weeks ago, and her entire freezer was filled with frozen waffles. I counted, there were 11 dozen packages, or there were 11 dozen frozen waffles, 11 packages of the 12.
Wow.
And of course, my brother wasn't doing inventory. He was just taking my mother's word for what she needed.
Yeah.
And she had filled it to where there wasn't any more room. And I'm thinking, doesn't she look in the freezer? Doesn't she think, I don't eat waffles every morning? How is this? And to me, that ability to problem solve should be so simple. So as a caregiver, I find that frustrating. And also I want to say to my brother, when she ordered waffles every single week, why didn't you look to see? And of course, that's a small piece. He and I are
Yeah.
joint caregivers with my sister, but I get frustrated with that kind of stuff with my mom.
Mhm. Mhm. Because you wanna fix it, right? 'Cause it's driving you crazy, but
Yeah.
and he's probably thinking, "She probably just loves waffles, so, hey, if she loves waffles, and that's what I'm gonna get her. I'm not gonna question it."
Yeah. She has
It's
2 waffles and a cup of coffee for breakfast every morning. And you know what? If she has extra waffles, it doesn't harm her at all.
Yes.
And for some reason, she likes knowing she has a freezer full of waffles. So what difference does it make?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just those funny little quirks that you experience as a caregiver. And do you ever struggle, or have you struggled with this communication? I deal with this all the time with myself. To say to my mom, remember we talked about this, or remember
Yes.
we've done this before. What's been your experience with that? I really struggle with it.
I Again, I join a support group through the Alzheimer's Association once a month, and we share these types of stories and tips, and just a constant reminder of yourself to just again live in her world, right? So
Yeah.
just relearn different vocabulary. Remember this? Do you remember that? Or I find it when sometimes I go live on Facebook and family members can, see how she's doing during our visit. And one of the things I try to coach people not to say is, hey, it's such and such. Do you remember me? Do you remember that we used to such and such and such? And I had to know that although she has the Alzheimer's, it doesn't mean that her brain is not working in there. She's just, in my mind, she's trapped in a word cloud that just won't ever come out. So I feel like, as respect for my mom, I try to remember to not say, "Do you remember?"
Yeah.
or things of that sort, because just a new way of establishing, I guess, respectful boundaries in that sense of, you wouldn't hopefully say like profanity, swear words around your parent. You try to like edit yourself down. So I think of it in that way. I think of it as the worst possible word that I could say and just try my best not to say the R word.
Well, I think that's a good way to think about it. It's kind of like memory shaming.
Yes.
Constantly reminding them, why can't you remember? Don't you remember? Do you remember? When in fact we already know they don't.
Mhm.
There are holes in the memory.
Yes.
So that's a
Yes.
beautiful way of thinking about it. Not using the R word. I think that's good. I like that. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's treat this like a job, which is really what caregiving is a lot of times. If you were going to write a job description for the job that you're doing as caregiver for your mom, what would it say?
It would say, um, caregiver needed, must be reliable, an early riser, flexible, patient, kind, um, fun, love music, dancing, and be familiar with the movie Jumanji.
So why the movie Jumanji?
Because if you have seen or have not, and you're going to check out the original movie, um, there's so many different levels to it, and you roll the dice and you just end up on whatever square. And whatever square you end up on whatever level it's going to be, just know that it's going to be quite an experience, rocky ride. Things may flood, things may burn, things may be crazy, things may start dropping out of the ceiling, things may disappear. But with Alzheimer's, it's it's a wild, crazy ride of so many levels of trying to figure out how to survive and then move on to where you're ready for the next crazy challenge that's going to throw you off your rocker in ways that you could never even imagine. You can't prepare yourself for those types of things. Um, it gets wild. It has been a wild ride.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Mhm.
I absolutely love that imagery because Jumanji, I remember watching it when my kids were younger. It scared the crap out of me.
Yeah.
Yeah. The monkeys that chase people, um, the animals that came alive, the hunter. Remember, there was a
The
safari
hunter.
hunter that would try to kill you.
I feel like that's the Alzheimer's. The Alzheimer's is the hunter that no
Yeah,
matter what level you're on,
he's
he's
there.
always there trying to get you. Like he's always there.
Yeah,
So
always a
yeah.
threat. Yeah, and
Mhm.
and every time you roll the dice, wherever you landed, there was some sort of hazard. There were vines that were going to come up and grow and choke you. Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
that's the perfect. That is the perfect description. Absolutely.
And the fact that we can think about that and chuckle,
I
So
know, right? Because from
yeah.
the outside, anybody who hasn't dealt with this, they would say these two ladies are nuts because this is
It's not
not funny.
funny. Yeah.
It's not funny because on the flip side of the jokes and talking about it as if it were a movie or a funny game, these are our parents. This is these are the women who birthed us and who have known us since we were born. And I know one of the things that that makes me very sad is my mother is supposed to be the person who remembers me from start to finish. And she does not remember me that way.
Mm-hmm.
She does not remember me that way. You remember I told you that a good interview
Yeah.
means one of us
I know.
cries. Yeah. And she is the
Yeah.
person who's supposed to be my memory keeper. And now that role is reversed, and I am the keeper of her memories for her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we make jokes so that we survive this, and we thrive in it.
Yes.
We thrive in it.
Yes. Yes.
So if you were going to sit down and talk to somebody who was starting out as a caregiver for someone with early onset Alzheimer's,
Mm-hmm.
what advice would you offer to them?
I would say, um, stand up for yourself, stand up for your loved one. Like you said, it's a unique um, part of the umbrella of this disease. And because there aren't many, in my experience or my knowledge, there aren't many people who look like me. Um, I've saw statistics about like the Black and Hispanic community. Our women are more susceptible to the disease, but there isn't much research or studies on us for us to be able to reference because we're so hardcore in believing that the medical system is against us and we should not participate in being studied because of things that have happened in history.
Yes. And with good reason. With good
Mhm,
reason.
mhm.
Yes.
I would say explore those options, insert yourself in these trials. Make sure that you are participating so that when you're looking out there for resources, you'll find people who look like you, who may be in the same situation as you, who you can connect with. Um, I would also say that it's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to cry. It's okay to feel like you're going to give up because those are all the feelings that you have to process through to make it. And then, aside from adjusting yourself and your mindset so that you could live in their world, something that I've done that sounds a little dark to some people is you have to grieve that person. You have to grieve, in our case, your mom that raised you, your mom, and the thought that you had of this picture of how your life was going to go from start to end. You have to grieve that whole person and realize that this person that you're taking care of now is not the same person. And so I don't like to say, but I say that around the diagnosis time, once that's settled in, this is what it is. This is what we're dealing with. I say that original Carlys died with that diagnosis. And from that point forward, when it was confirmed, now I'm learning who this new woman is. She's still herself. She's still there. She still has some of that long term memory. But in order for me to not be so sad about my mom and me now being her mother, in a sense, I had to spend time grieving her. She looked different. She acts different. It's not the same person. So it's okay to grieve your person while they're here, so that you can care for this new person that they've become.
That's great advice. That helps me today too. So much, Sheralin. So,
Mm.
Sheralin, I want to ask you about your YouTube channel. Are you ready to talk about that?
Yeah,
Let's hear
kinda.
it.
Yeah,
Because
let's go for it.
you're doing some meaning making, and I love it.
Yes.
So tell me what you're doing with your YouTube videos.
I like to say I'm a little OCD, but I've been holding off on this YouTube channel because I am just now realizing that my voice and our story is a gift and a testimony for a lot of people and myself. And so I'm accepting that. And I've created this YouTube channel so that I can um, show and share information with people like me who need information or what to look for. People are always asking, how did you find out? How did she feel? Um, just all these little questions that I've had videos and pictures over the years that I just have. And so I am putting together short episodes of just our journey over time and, um, what my mom looked like, how she grew up, um, the steps to diagnosis, the steps to and through hospice, assisted living, convalescent homes, how it affected me, my children, the family dynamic, um, and like just general everyday things, what she does for activities, how she keeps busy, um, and the fun things that she still does. Although she has Alzheimer's, there's like we enjoy each other's company. I put together two short clips that are on there now. And one of the best ones was that Christmas time, I was sitting with her and she doesn't have many words these days. I like to call them catchphrases. But she has these catchphrases that she'll give every now and then. But I hadn't heard her speak in almost a year. And I was talking to her and I'm like, she's looking at me, she's expressive with her eyes. She's looking at me and she's like, Mom, do I irritate you? And she like gives me a nod. And I said, Wait, I irritate you? And then she just lets out like she really meant this to come out. She said, Yes, and she like leaned forward and she made sure that that came out. And I was just so overjoyed and happy to hear her voice because it's been so long. And she was my best friend, like I would call her multiple times a day to just talk to her and talk her ear off and irritate her, but I was so happy to hear her voice. So
Yeah.
things like that are going to be there. I'm going to try to catch those good moments along with sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly.
I like that. I like that.
Mhm.
So if my listeners want to go in and see the YouTube videos, how do they search on YouTube?
It's called Caring for Carlys.
Caring for Carlys.
Caring for Carlys. And then it's youtube.com/a_daughters_journey. So that's how I named it. A daughter's journey, because it's about my journey, but it's caring for her as well. So
Sure.
mixing all that in there.
Well, I will put a link in the show notes. Okay, I have one last question before we close out because this is a big one.
Yeah.
Self-care. How do you
Oh.
practice healthy self-care? What's your favorite healthy go-to self-care habit right now?
I live in the Bay Area and we are blessed to have such great landscapes. So I love hiking in the hills of Berkeley, Oakland, but I mostly love the beach. So I'll drive up to the coast. You can get to beautiful beaches 30 to an hour, 30 minutes to an hour drive away in any direction. So whenever I have time, whenever the weather's clever, I get out there and enjoy fresh air. And I love to just sit and listen to nature. So that's my self care.
Nice, nice. I'm coming out to visit you. I'm going to hike with
Yeah.
you.
we can definitely hang out. Yes.
Well, Sheralin, thank you so much for doing this. This was a courageous conversation. And I'm thrilled and honored that you were able to tell your story here. Thank you for introducing me to Carlys. Keep going with your journey. You're doing a great job. And thank you so much for being with me.
I appreciate you for having me and considering. And I'm hoping that this helps a lot of people. So thank you so much for giving me that extra push. And I hope everyone enjoyed listening to our story.
Thanks for listening to the Heart of Hospice podcast. Check out our sponsor in the show notes and please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. We would appreciate it if you would share this episode with your friends and family and anyone who needs to know more about hospice. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, no matter who you are or where you are in your hospice journey, you are the heart of hospice.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time.